Hello, it's Dawn Michelle and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do another little mini collection, but I wanted to talk about and share the decks, or really the creators that I collect. So there are a few creators here, the three that create these decks along with one other that we're going to take a look at, that I pretty much buy anything they make. These are creators that I really love their work. I really love their approach to tarot and oracle, and I think they create phenomenal products. And I actually want to cultivate a collection and complete my collection of decks by these creators. And I think at the time I'm filming this, I do have every deck created by each of the creators that we're going to talk about today. These are all indie deck creators, so I'm not going to go into mass market deck creators. There are some of those that are, favorites of mine, of course, Barbara Moore. Anything that she creates, I usually love. She's one of my favorites, and I've been working with her decks for several decades now. But I really wanted to just focus on the indie decks, the indie creators, because these are people that I like to support their work, so I pretty much buy everything that they create. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk about some of my favorite creators. So let's go ahead and start with a creator that I'm probably sure that most of you all know that I sort of follow and like to support, and pretty much have, I do believe, all of her decks at this point. And that is Danielle Noel, and she is the creator of the Moonchild as well as the Starchild. We'll just take a quick peek through all of these decks as we're, talking about these different creators, just so you can see Danielle Noel decks, with the exception of one of them, I think, all pretty much come at the same size. They all come with a really nice box. They all come with a really nice guidebook. And I do really love the way that Danielle Noel creates decks. So here's the backs with the beautiful sort of Art Deco design. We have that matte gold edging. I think this might have been the first deck that I ever saw with the matte gold on it, which is really lovely. My deck has a slight bow to it, but I am a riffle shuffler, so that's probably the reason. I really love this deck. I've mentioned it many times. I have full dedicated videos to several of Danielle Noel's decks. I really, really love the artwork where there's no people. That is my favorite. I'm still kind of holding out hope that she will do a really pippy deck with no people in it, would be amazing. And as I've mentioned before, the super young kings and queens are not my favorite. Did hear something about that they're people she knows. So there's nothing against the people. It's just sometimes I think they're a little bit distracting, because the world that Danielle Noel creates with her artwork is fantastic. And sometimes the people just don't quite fit in that world. This is a really good example of it. This Knight of Swords just doesn't quite fit, but oh my goodness, this Eight of Pentacles is everything. So the cards without people, as I've mentioned before, are definitely my favorite. I think that she just creates this really beautiful, magical world within her artwork. I mean, this is stunning. One of my favorite Ace of Pentacles. It is, of course, digital collage. And the other thing is that I just really appreciate the way that Danielle Noel envisions the tarot. And so I think her decks work really, really well for me, because they do align pretty well with how I read. And so it's a deck and a style of deck creation that really does work for me. So that one was the Moonchild Tarot, and I have already ordered, I think the day it came out, I pre-ordered the Gothic edition of the Moonchild Tarot, which is not out yet. I don't know its order status, but I'll leave it linked in the description box below for you in case you want to check it out. But I seriously pre-ordered that the day I got the email, the day it came available. So of course, Danielle Noel is also very well known for the Starchild Tarot, and this is the reprint of the original edition, I do believe, that she came out with a couple of years ago. I wasn't able to get to the original, but I was able to pick up a copy of this one. This is the backs. Again, the same matte gilding, same cardstock on all of these decks. Now, where the Moonchild is borderless, the Starchild does have a white border in this edition. But I do have another edition that we're going to take a look at as well. And again, I really, really love this deck, and I mentioned it in my monthly wrap-up. I I think at the beginning of the month, where I talked about how the Moonchild feels very much grounded in like star-seedy energy, kind of bringing the cosmos down to earth. It's one of my favorite Eight of Wands ever. Absolutely love it. This deck has several of my like most favorite cards in it. But where the Moonchild feels very like much more grounded in that celestial energy, this to me feels very cosmic. It feels very out in the cosmic connection energy. And so it does have a completely different sort of vibe and energy for me than the Moonchild does. Again, I love the artwork. I love the world that she's created here. And I really, really like when the people aren't like front and center. Again, nothing against the people, just like these cards just do so much more for me when I can kind of like imagine myself in this world. And that's the main reason why I don't always like to see like photography style people in my decks, because sometimes that does take me out of it a little bit. Whereas if I'm just more in this world, like this Five of Cups, this is a gorgeous Five of Cups. It gives me all the feels of the card without me being distracted by whoever's looking back at me. I can imagine myself in the card, which I really, really appreciate. Like here's another one. I mean, she just creates the most beautiful pip cards. So I'm still holding out for a pip deck, maybe hopefully one of these days. I think she would do a phenomenal job with that. Now, recently I added the Starchild Tarot Akashic edition to my collection. And even though it is the same deck, essentially, I think there are a few changes in the artwork. And you'll see this one is still completely in order because I have not worked with it at all yet. It is brand new to my collection because I wanted to complete my Danielle Noel collection. And that is solely why I purchased it. However, once it got here, here's the beautiful backs. This is closer to traditional tarot size. Again, beautiful matte gold gilding, same cardstock, but because it is closer to tarot size, I thought this actually might work out well for me because it's gonna be a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit easier for me to work with. I do feel like several of the cards have changed. I know the Hierophant is the same. I believe the Lovers is different. So it is essentially the same deck. With mostly the same artwork. It does happen to be in a different size, but really why I purchased this is because I want the whole collection. I want to support Danielle Noel's artwork. I want to support you know, her continuing to create decks because I love them. If I love a creator and I love a deck and a world and their approach to tarot, I want to be able to see it through every lens that they have expressed that. And for a deck creator, that means purchasing all the decks that they've created. And so I fully 100% bought this to complete my Danielle Noel collection, and I have zero regrets about it. I do love that it's like a smaller size. So in that sense, it is a little bit different than the other Starchild Tarot that I have. As I mentioned, some of the artwork is a little bit different as well. And I haven't done a side-by-side comparison. I know I watched one years ago, but I haven't seen one since. But yeah, I'm really excited to have this now so that when the Moonchild Gothic gets here, I will have my whole Danielle Noel collection. So my last Danielle Noel deck that I have to share with you today, because the Gothic one isn't here yet or out yet, is the Ocean Dreams Oracle. And this is, I think, a fairly new, I think her newest release. And her only Oracle deck that is completely created and produced by her. So Danielle Noel did do a few decks, the Starseed and Work Your Light decks in a collaboration with Rebecca Campbell. And I did not include those because to me, those are not Danielle Noel decks. They are Rebecca Campbell decks that just happen to feature Danielle Noel artwork. So they're not, as far as I know, they're not the creation, the brainchild of Danielle Noel, whereas this Ocean Dreams deck very much is. So here's the beautiful backs. This one is gilded in this like absolutely stunning seafoam green and matte. It's just beautiful. Again, same kind of Danielle Noel essence art, but this one, I feel like there are very few people in this one, and it is all about the place, the water. Like, oh, this one, the Ancient Emissaries with the whales. I mean, it's one of my favorite cards in this deck. There is so much cosmic energy also in this. It is the Ocean Dreams, but it does say on it that it's the Mystic Oracle, and I feel like that really does come into play with this deck, where we have that sort of watery base, but it is very much like the cosmos. And I really love that because the ocean itself is kind of like a mini cosmos. A lot of the things that we see in the ocean, a lot of the unknown about the ocean too, can be mirrored in the universe, in the greater cosmos, because we don't have a clear understanding really of the depths of either. So I think it's really cool how they mirror each other. There's tons of whales in this deck, which is just absolutely amazing. And I do feel like in this deck, the ocean energy, the sense of place, is more important than the figures that may happen to appear. You know, here's a person and they're in this inner sanctum, but I really feel like the card is about the inner sanctum, not so much the person that's in it. So it works really well for me. I love this card as well, the inner compass with the bear. It's just gorgeous. And it is one of my kind of favorite. Love this one too. I mean, see all the whales. Like, if you know me, you know I love whales, and so this deck definitely is right up there with my top oracle decks that I love to work with. But I do use this one for very specific kinds of work. So it's not just an everyday sort of oracle. It does kind of have a little bit of a sacred purpose in my collection and in my practice. So another creator that will probably be no surprise if you've watched my channel for any length of time, that I absolutely adore and have, I do believe all of the decks that she has currently available, is Alejandra León. Sorry, I had to look. I wanted to make sure I pronounced it right. And this is, of course, the creator of the Lioness Oracle Tarot. It is a well-loved, well-used deck in my collection. Here's the beautiful backs. The cardstock on all three of this creator's decks that I have are the same as well. It is much more slippy than the Moonchild, although it does have that beautiful matte gilding. And we do have borders, white borders on all of these, but I think it actually works really well to contain the artwork. I have a whole video, like a love letter to this deck, and it's just absolutely fantastic. It's one of my favorites. There is just something so creative yet nurturing about this deck. It has kind of a blend of Queen of Wands, Queen of Cups energy for me, because there are lots of big cats. It definitely ties into that Leo energy of like going out there, getting your creative work done. But then we also have, I love this that came up, the Queen of Cups. We also have a lot of very nurturing, supportive energy. So it's like cosmos, earthy, and fire all wrapped into one, and it's just such a brilliant reader for me. The little guidebook is great too, but this deck is just one that I, for the most part, read pretty, you know, intuitively and based on my traditional tarot association, which is something that I love. So a deck like this, where it's not tied into the Rider-Waite-Smith, makes it more open for me so that I can read it a little bit more in alignment with the numerological and elemental bent that I have, or really foundation of how I read tarot. And a deck like this allows me to do that and bring that even more into the forefront than when I'm working with a deck that's more traditionally illustrated and based on the Golden Dawn, you know, Rider-Waite-Smith system. And this deck is just like, it's just stunning. It's stunning. It's beautiful. I love working with it. It always gives me exactly what I need. And I just think it's such a pleasure to work with. So my other favorite deck by this creator is the Vision of the Muse Oracle. And this, of course, pairs beautifully with the Lioness Oracle Tarot, but it also works as a wonderful standalone oracle deck. Here's the beautiful backs on it. Again, matte gold gilding, same cardstock, so they just blend together really beautifully. This deck has really stunning collage art on it and really great single keywords, which I really appreciate. I can use this deck in a lot of different ways and with a lot of different tarot decks that I have in my collection, but I do work with it a lot with the Lioness Oracle. So a lot of times I don't pair Tarot and Oracle by the same creator, but these two decks just really do complement each other well, and I do feel like they work really, really well together. However, I can pull this deck out with a variety of my other collage decks, it does work really well with them. I really love the keywords on this deck. There's just something about them. They work really well. I love the imagery that we get. You know, we have release and we have dream, pleasure, love, balance. I mean, they're just really great, succinct keywords. Humor. This kind of reminds me of that one comic card in that one archetype deck. Which I no longer have, but like that gets the same essence, but I like that one better. I just really dig the collage. And this is like, whereas the Danielle Noel decks are, I'm pretty sure, digital collage. They were digitally created to look like one image for the most part. This is like, if I remember correctly from what I read, this is like old school analog collage. It's like hand cut and paste. And there's just something really raw and organic about that I really appreciate. And I think that very much comes through working with her decks. And I think the energy of it just really adds to the whole sort of flavor of the deck. It really brings the artwork out in a very organic and intuitive way. Whereas sometimes when we're working with digital collage decks, it can feel a little bit like they are blended together, where in a sort of traditionally collage deck, things kind of stand out a little bit more. So you get more of a sense of the individual elements, whereas with some of the digital collage, they kind of blend together a little bit more, and you can't always really get a sense of the individual pieces that have come together to create that particular work of art. So the last deck that I have by this creator is the Stars Divine, and this is an astrology oracle. So I don't use this deck that often, and I'll be perfectly honest, I bought this again to complete my collection of this creator's decks, and of course, as always, to support her work. So here's the beautiful backs with all the planets. I do really love that. Same matte gold gilding, same white border, same cardstock, same everything. This deck I do keep in order because we have the constellations here, like Leo and Libra, and I don't want to get it too far out of order. Scorpio. They're just really beautifully created collage based on the constellations and the planets. We have the sun and the moon, and then we have the actual planets, so Mercury, Venus, Mars. Again, I do keep this one in order because when I do work with this deck, it's not a random shuffle and pull like I do with the Vision of the Muse. This one, I will come and I will find whatever card that I need to be working with, and that's the card that I'll pull in. So if I'm doing some astrology work, which to be honest, I don't do very often, but when I do work with some astrology related stuff, I do like to use this deck. It has the houses in it. The houses are great because with the collage, it gives you a really good idea of kind of what that house means. So if you're not super familiar with the houses and what they all mean and what they relate to, this kind of a thing with the different elements collaged together can really help kind of give you a good idea of what that house entails. And then we do have some, receptive, active. We have the elements. So there's water, the directions, our ascendant, midheaven, and then a couple of full moon, solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, and just, I love this one too, the whole picture. I think that's great. So this is a deck that I'll use whenever I'm just wanting to pull in those astrological elements into a reading. I don't necessarily use it as a straight oracle. But again, to be perfectly honest, it's one I bought just to, complete this creator's collection so that I had all of her decks. So another creator that I just absolutely adore their work is Leila and Olive, who created the Ophidia Rosa Tarot along with all of the 4 other decks that we're going to see that I have by this creator. So here's the back of the Ophidia Rosa, which is really one of my favorites. These decks by this creator have a very specific aesthetic. They have a very similar cardstock to the Moonchild and the Lioness. They have the beautiful matte gilding, and they have just this really unique aesthetic. And it took me a really long time to come around to getting this deck, like not literally getting it, because this is my second copy because I got the deck. I went through it and I was like, I don't really get it, and then rehomed it without really too much fuss, without really trying. And then I kept seeing it, kept thinking about it, and I was like, there's just something about that deck that just really does speak to me. I just feel like it's one that I need to put a little bit of work into. And so I purchased it again, and then I did a whole deep dive with it. I created a journal. I wrote poetry around this deck. Like, I had a whole experience with it. And now, like, I totally get it. Me and this deck, we are bonded. I get this deck. It gets me. We have beautiful conversations together. Again, it's another really, really pippy deck, and it does allow me to read a little bit more in my elemental numerological, really leaning more on the numerological even than the elemental, because this deck does feel very earthy. So it feels like it's very much grounded in that sort of earth pentacle-y energy, and so I lean more into the kind of like fire of earth or air of earth. And then, you know, the numerological values of the card. So like the 10, and then, you know, leaning into the way that I, in particular, how I read the quartz. So one of the things that I really like about a pip deck is that it does allow me to really read in the way that I need to, I want to. It doesn't force me into a particular tradition or a particular card meaning. This kind of a deck is much more open. I wouldn't say it's a super like intuitive reader, because I feel like what this deck does is more metaphorical in a sense. I don't feel like this is a deck that you could like pull out and like the Moonchild or the even the Lioness Oracle, like you could pull one of those cards out and you could just completely ignore the tarot and you could really just dive into the intuitive, whatever your intuitive hits are coming in off that artwork. And I really don't feel like that's the case with this deck. I feel like this deck, while you can pull in intuitive work with it, I feel like this deck is like poetry. You need to look beyond the surface level to see what the meaning is underneath. And it's very much, for me, it was very much a felt experience. So these decks aren't about what's on the surface level. It's about what is going on beneath that. And I really do have to work slowly with this deck. And I really have to think about, you know, what message is this image trying to convey to me beyond that surface level? Like, I gotta dig deep with this one. And I appreciate that about this deck. I appreciate a deck. I mean, it's, you know, a deck that I can just throw on the table and get my card readings and go on with my day is great. But I do really appreciate a deck that offers me so much more if I'm willing to put the time and work into it, because that's where you create the bond. And I think that that's just so cool. So I'm trying to do these in the order that I purchased them, and I do believe the next deck that I purchased was the Pythia Botanica, which is the Oracle deck by this creator. And I think, like I forgot to mention with the Ophidia Rosa, but like the attention to detail in the boxes, you know, there's little messages inside the top and bottom. The little guidebooks are fantastic. They're very succinct, but they're fantastic. I really, really enjoy them. So this is the Pythia Botanica. This is actually the first edition, first volume, not edition, first volume, because they did come out with the second one, which we'll see here in a minute. So this is the beautiful backs, which I love. Again, same cardstock, same gilding, same everything. This is a really, really fantastic Oracle deck because the key phrases are different. They're unique in a lot of ways. So like disquiet the myth with the mandrake, sorcerer's violet with the periwinkle, tempt forget with belladonna, embrace, love's will with the moonflower. To me, they're just so interesting. They're not always keywords that I see on other decks. Again, there's also that whole beautiful aesthetic thing going on with these cards. I do feel like because of the aesthetics of them, similar to the Ophidia Rosa, it encourages me to slow down, to take my time. And I really, really appreciate that about these decks because they encourage me to work with them in a very mindful, almost sacred kind of a way. And I think that that's just absolutely beautiful. So we have like From Ash and Escape and Remember, Begin Forever. I mean, some of them are just really, really cool. Errant, Repose, Enchant, Letha the Heart, Cleanse, Grow Together. I mean, I just think that some of them are really, really cool. And even though this, I do believe, is their newest release, so not, now we're going out of order of my purchase. I don't even know why I said I was going to do that. This is, I think, their newest one, and this is the Pythia Botanica Oracle Volume 2. Slightly different backs, same coloration, but a different design, which is really cool. Because then if you wanted to blend them together into one deck, you could. And then based on the backs, which do blend really well together, but based on the backs, you could really easily separate them, which I appreciate. Again, same beautiful matte gold gilding. Again, these also have really cool different keywords on them, like there's time, please receive, climb, life and breath, Bedlam's Bow, salvage seeds. It's just, you know, position poison. It's so cool. I just think that these ones, even more so, I think in the second volume, the messages are different. They make me think about things in a different way because it's not your typical, you know, release, surrender, contentment, whatever. It's not, I mean, there is some of that in here too. I think much more in the first one than there is in the second one, but like knocking on devotion's door, I mean, that's just so cool. This one feels more like poetry to me. Like, I feel like you could lay these cards out and you could probably write a poem. I'm not the poet, right? But I just feel like the messages are really, really cool on the card. Bygone birth, sound vision. I mean, we do have a few that like glory, so some traditional keywords, but the majority of them, particularly in the second edition, are quite interesting and they do something a little bit different, which I really appreciate. So then we have the other Oracle deck by this creator, the Maiden Oracle. And again, this one follows suit with the rest, but it does have a particular sort of structure to it. Here's the beautiful backs, which actually match more with the Ophidia Rosa. So it's really cool because we have the darker kind of almost blackboard style backgrounds on the Ophidia Rosa and the Maiden Oracle. And then the Pythia Botanica decks have the lighter gray, which is really cool. Again, beautiful gilding. So what this one does a little bit different, again, super interesting keywords, which I really love, is there is kind of a structure to this deck. I was doing some work with it. So this is really cool because there is a full major arcana in here along with all of the oracle cards. So you can kind of use it as a majors only plus oracle as well, or you can just let those majors cards come up, which is really interesting when you pair it with the tarot deck, because then if you get like two of the same cards, that's really cool. That means that energy is like really, really important right now, right? Again, we have really interesting keywords. Here we have an artichoke with others' wishes, go around, hist, remiss. There are also some goddesses in here. We have Athena, Medusa. Maybe I didn't separate them. I thought I did. Nope, I didn't. I mixed them in. That's okay. I know I have at one point because I did a particular reading using the structure of this deck along with the Ophidia Rosa. So we have Below the Robe, here's Persephone, Caught the Thread, Ungiven Grin. I mean, it's just, there's such interesting keywords. Okay, so here we have the Tower, the Star, the Moon, Sun, and like I think the major arcana cards are really, really cool. Like I really like the depictions of them. They actually do, I feel, align more with the traditional RWS in this particular oracle than they do in the Ophidia Rosa. So you kind of get a little bit of both. Like the Magician, the High Priestess, and there's our Fool. So really cool. I've used this deck and kind of sectioned it out in its various structured format to create a reading using this and the Ophidia Rosa, which was really cool. So the final deck from this creator is the Ad Orbita, and I absolutely adore this deck. It says it's a tarot deck from the soil to the stars, which kind of just embodies my practice in just this really beautiful way. I haven't been mentioning the little like guidebooks or pullouts. So the oracles have little guidebooks and the tarot decks have little pullouts. The write-ups in these are like poetry. They are beautiful. I always look to them because I absolutely love working with them. So here's the beautiful backs. Now we've gone to a blue color, still keeping in this creator's same sort of aesthetic though, which I love. Beautiful more orangey matte, orangey gold matte gilding on this particular deck. This deck is very much a pip deck, but I think it blends really well with the RWS should you want to use it. And it also reads really well numerologically and elementally, which I absolutely love. So we have lots of planetary bodies in the major arcana, and we have kind of the soil, so the stars to the soil in a lot of the suit cards. So like the swords are, if I remember, like comets or asteroids. The cups are oceans and moons. And again, there's a structure, there's an intention to the creation of the suits and the way that things are depicted. And I think it works really well. If I was going to recommend one of this creator's decks to kind of get familiar with their work, I would actually recommend this one first as a first tarot from this creator, just because I think it's a little bit easier to read. However, like I think there's just so much beauty in the Ophidia Rosa that just, I don't know that it necessarily gets the recognition that I feel like it deserves for being a really phenomenal deck. But this one is absolutely beautiful too. And I really love the way it reads. I think it's very elemental, very numerological, and it also has that, you know, soil to the stars energy, which is just absolutely fantastic and completely in alignment with my own personal practice. So of course, this is one of my favorites. So the final creator that I want to talk about today is Lorenzi-Prince, and I'm sure most of you know her and are familiar with her work. I pulled this one out first because it's the only one I actually still have a box for. This is the Minoan Tarot. It's probably one of her lesser known tarot decks. She is more commonly known for her Dark Goddess Tarot, which is absolutely fantastic and is available mass market through Schiffer, I believe. The rest of these decks that I'm going to share with you are her indie decks. So this is the back of the Minoan Tarot. I think this one, I don't hardly ever see anybody talk about. It's a beautiful deck. It's very indicative of Lorenzi-Prince's artwork. Like she has a very specific art style. You'll see that coming through all of these decks. And I just absolutely adore her art style. There is something about it that is like so clean yet primal, if that makes sense. It's such a, almost like this contradiction, because it feels very primal, very rooted into the primal self, the soul self, the ancient self, the self that has seen many, many lifetimes. But it's also like very clean, very crisp. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, but clearly this deck, the Minoan Tarot, is based on Minoan culture. Lorenzi-Prince's little guidebooks are very succinct, but they are absolutely fantastic, and it will key you into what is going on in this deck. It's absolutely amazing. So let's go ahead and check out the deck that she's most commonly known for these days, and that is the Dark Goddess Tarot. This is the indie edition. I did purchase the mass market edition to get the guidebook. I did end up rehoming the cards because this is the edition that I work with primarily. So this deck, I'm sure you all have probably seen around. It focuses on the dark goddesses. The guidebook for this is amazing. Like, even if you have the indie edition, I highly recommend getting the mass market just to get the guidebook. I'm not a fan of the design layout of the mass market edition. I don't like the cardstock, and I don't like the design choices that they made. I feel it detracts from her really beautiful artwork. But that's okay, because I have this one, and like this is the indie edition is out of print, and it's very, very difficult to find. So I definitely recommend the mass market one, as I think it's a fantastic deck. I just preferred this one over that, and I didn't need 2 copies of the deck, but I definitely wanted the book. So I have the book, and I use that with this particular indie edition. This deck has just beautiful, beautiful, ancient, primal, gorgeous artwork that just speaks to me on a really visceral level, which I absolutely love. Mine is quite bowed because I riffle and I keep it in a bag, but Like, it's just amazing. So another deck that she's very well known for, and again, I don't have the box for it, but it is in this beautiful Crystal Haven bag that I purchased. My very special decks get very special bags from this particular bag creator. So this is the Tarot of the Crone, which I'm sure several of you have probably seen. This is an out of print deck, and I just remembered one other creator that I need to pull into this collection because it just slipped my mind. So here's the beautiful backs. I love that they're just like matte. I did edge mine in black, and again, that same Ellen Lorenzi-Prince artwork. I feel like this one though, like it just, it's so like, it's like Barbara Walker Tarot. And it's just like, it's this punch in the gut, but like you need it. Like it's the, where Barbara Walker Tarot, like I joke that that's my salty grandma deck. This deck is not salty, but it's definitely like, of course, being the Tarot of the Crone, it's definitely full of that really ancient ancestral crone energy that just really speaks to you in a way that you need to hear it, right? Like it doesn't pull any punches, and it's really beautiful, and it's really deep and really impactful, but it's not quite as harsh as maybe the Barbara Walker, but it's an absolutely wonderful deck to work with. It's one of those that I don't like pull a ton of cards because it does pack quite a punch. But it's absolutely beautiful, and I do apologize because this one is out of print. So another little deck that I have that I don't know that I've seen anybody else really even talk about is the She Who Watches Oracle. And this is, I think it was a really limited print run for this particular Oracle deck. It's a very, very small Oracle, so there's only a few cards in it. I can't remember, 30 something, I believe. Here's the beautiful backs, but it's just, again, it's her gorgeous, gorgeous artwork. I really, really love the imagery in this deck. This is one of my favorite cards. It works really well, of course, with her tarot decks, and I've definitely used it for that, but I've also used it in readings with other tarot decks as well, and it works really, really beautifully. Again, just, I love her artwork. There's just something about it that is so nurturing and rich and primal. And it just like, it affects you on like this really, really deep level. Or at least it does me, I guess. I shouldn't speak for others. It's just something about it. There's just something about it. Like it's something that's one of those, like as I've mentioned like in other videos, like it's one of those felt experiences that it's hard for me to really verbalize, but that is the She Who Watches Oracle. So my last Ellen Lorenzi-Prince deck is the newest, which is, I believe, the most current deck out from this creator, and this is the Greek Goddess Tarot, which I'll be perfectly honest, I really just got, again, to complete my Ellen Lorenzi-Prince collection. However, once I got it and I opened it, you'll see it's still in order because I've only just looked through it. It's gorgeous. Like, I don't know why I wouldn't want it because like I absolutely love her work. And this one is so interesting because here's the backs. It's on a different cardstock and it is more traditional tarot size, which is really nice. This deck, it has, of course, Greek goddesses in it, in the Greek Goddess Tarot. And I think they are primarily in the major arcana. But this deck has, granted, I haven't read with it. Like it literally just came in because I was like, I need to complete my collection for Ellen Lorenzi-Prince, and this is her latest deck out. So I went ahead and picked it up. I love the associations in the minors. We have arrows and cups and swords and grain, which is cool. So I like the arrows and the grain. That's kind of different, but this deck has a lighter feel to it. It doesn't, like, it still feels like, you know, ancient and primal, like her other decks do, but for whatever reason, this one feels a bit more approachable. It feels lighter. It's like the other decks kind of feel like they sit in that late fall, early winter, or even really into the dark depths of winter with the Tarot of the Crone. Her other decks, I guess this one, the Minoan, feels like summer, but this one feels like spring. I don't know. I guess I have a deck for every season now for her. Because I could say the Minoan is summer. This feels very spring. Tarot of the Crone feels very winter. And we could say Dark Goddess is fall, but I don't know, that's a stretch. That's me stretching there. But there's just something about this deck that is just, it feels lighter. It feels more approachable. It's same beautiful artwork, same beautiful imagery. And it just, I don't know, man. Something about it just really does it for me. I love the artwork. It feels very much like a spring deck. But again, obviously, because it's still in order and it just got here a day or two ago, I haven't had a chance to work with it yet, but I'm really excited to give it a chance. I can't believe I almost forgot these. I'm gonna pull them all out together because I just want you to see this. This is my Claire Goodchild collection because, like, honestly, Claire Goodchild is a deck creator that I collect. I'm going to say most of what she creates because I don't have absolutely every expansion of the Memento Mori, but I do have all of her like base decks. This does also happen to be all of the indie versions. And I do also have her book, her wonderful book out that I showed in the Books I'm Loving video. But before we get into that one, like, I just have to show you this because I absolutely think this is like the best thing ever. This makes my little nerd heart so freaking happy. So I bought this bag for my Memento Mori from Crystal Haven, UK. These all came from Etsy. I'll leave a link to her shop below. Absolutely fantastic bag creator. Cannot recommend her work enough. I have tons of her bags. Like, all of my special decks get bags from her. It's like my normal decks I will make bags for, but if it's a special deck, it gets a Crystal Haven bag. So I bought this one for my Memento Mori, and then I was like, oh, there's the one in the beige kind of canvasy color for my Antique Anatomy. And then I reached out to her and was like, could I pretty please order one on green for my Oracle of Oddities? And like, she got it all created for me. It was beautiful, perfect. And this, oh my goodness, is this just not the best thing ever? This just so makes me happy. I do also have the Arcana of Astrology, but it's not in a bag. So let's go ahead and start with the deck that Claire Goodchild is probably most commonly known for, and that is her Antique Anatomy. I have multiple copies of this deck. This one is my indie version, and it's kind of like my favorite, the one that I use most often. I do, however, have a mass market edition, 2 copies of a mass market edition. One as it normally is, which I just kind of have as a backup. And then I have my modified version, which I did an entire like collaged over the top of the deck. I'll leave a link for that in the description box below in case you haven't seen it. But I didn't pull those out because these are like, that's kind of my own weird hybrid thing that I made. And so I wanted to just show you the ones that were actually like just Claire Goodchild creations. So this is the back of the Antique Anatomy Tarot. This deck is available mass market. The back is slightly different on the mass market version, but this is like one of my absolute favorite pip decks. I love this one. I use it a lot. It works with so many of my decks. It's such a great like addition to working with other decks as well, like other tarot. I don't talk a lot about or I haven't yet, I guess I should say, talked a lot about pairing tarot and tarot, but that is definitely something I do. And I love this deck because with it being a pip deck, it pairs really beautifully, and it adds like a really wonderful foundational level for reading for me because, again, being a pip deck, I can work with it numerologically and elementally, which is very much in alignment of how I read. And I feel like that, if you'll see, that's a cohesive thing across a lot of these creators that I've talked about today. Creators that create decks that are more open, that are less tied into a particular tradition of tarot and allow me to read it more in my own way. That's definitely something that appeals to me. And when I find creators that do that, I definitely tend to collect their work. But this deck is just amazing. It's a beautiful reader. I find it to be really versatile as well. I can use it for just about anything. It pairs really well with a lot of things that I have in my collection. I use it for a lot of different readings. So it's kind of a great all-around pip deck. Also, the mass market version of this has the most excellent guidebook. And if you are interested in learning to read pips a little bit more numerologically and elementally, this is the deck that I recommend for that, because it's a beautiful pip deck and the guidebook is absolutely fantastic, and it will tell you what you need to know to be able to work with this deck. So my next Claire Goodchild deck in this gorgeous bag is the Memento Mori. So this deck is really, really cool. I love the backs. I love the distress with the skulls. Just awesome. I may yet edge mine, but I haven't yet. This deck is really, really cool because it is a Lenormand and an Oracle deck. So there is a full Lenormand set within this deck. I do just have them all mixed together, and I just have been using it as an Oracle, but you can pull out those Lenormand cards and use those for Lenormand readings as well. Now, this is a deck that just has kind of the title of what it is. So like this is a Lenormand card with the cross. But these things, I guess because of my past, the way that I've learned tarot and the other practices that I've integrated into that, and things that like witchy practices and working with the body and the self and all of that. This deck works for me because I have associations to all of these things. There is a little guidebook and you can definitely get in there and, you know, look at what the meanings are and what Claire intended for them. But I also find that I really don't need to, because it does give me like a really succinct reading, because I know what these things mean to me personally, which is kind of nice. And I know that can be like a kind of a stumbling block for some people, because like, I don't know what to do with an hourglass. I need some sort of a message, and I totally get that. And that's a lot the case for me with most Oracle decks that just have the title. Most of the time, I'm the one over there complaining that there's no like keyword, it's just a title. But something about the way that the artwork is created, something about the types of cards that are included in this deck, I have my own associations, and it works really well for me. I love to blend this deck and use it alongside the Antique Anatomy and the Oracle of Oddities. I also really like to use it with the Madame Lydia's. It works really well. And a lot of times when I blend this with Oracle, the Oracle of Oddities is really cool, because I can pull like one of these out and I can do a reading based around this symbol, this object. And then I can use other Oracle and Tarot to help me sort of flesh out that message, which is really, really cool and something I really enjoy doing with these particular decks. Claire does have quite a few expansion packs for the Memento Mori as well. I haven't yet purchased those, but they are on my list. So I guess technically my Claire Goodchild collection isn't quite complete yet, but I have the main decks, right? The main things that she's created. Everything else that she's created around the Memento Mori has just been an expansion pack. So then we have my newest Claire Goodchild decks in my newest bag, this absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous green one. And if you haven't seen the Oracle of Oddities, you will see why this is just the most amazing bag match. So perfect. This deck is fantastic. This is actually three decks in one. So this is the Oracle of Oddities, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd edition. I was very generously gifted the 2nd edition by Claire Goodchild, and then I purchased the 1st and 3rd off a secondary website. And I absolutely love this deck. So this one does have just the keyword, so the single keyword on it. This artwork though, it really gets me. It really, really does. I think even in putting the 3 decks together, I think there were only 2 cards that had the same keyword on them. I think one of them had the exact same artwork, and the other one, I think there were 2 of the same keywords with a different artwork, so I just chose the one that I liked the best. These keywords are amazing. They're super expansive. They are really interesting. They create great readings. And again, I love the artwork. There's just something about the way that Claire Goodchild creates her art that just, like, it speaks to me on an inner voice level. Even though her little guidebooks and inserts and all that are fantastic, like, I really don't need them because, like, her art speaks for itself. It's a very much a felt experience, and you'll see that's also a common theme throughout these decks from these creators that I like to collect. They are very much felt experiences, and they generally resonate with how I read on a very foundational level. So that brings us to the last deck in this video, as well as in my Claire Goodchild collection. This is Arcana of Astrology. Again, it's another astrology deck. And this deck is also available mass market now, and it has a beautiful guidebook and everything. I do have that as well too. So I guess technically I have 2 copies of this deck. I love the backs. I just prefer the indies just because they all have the same cardstock. I really like the way that they shuffle and all of that kind of good stuff. There's some interesting things. I think I did a comparison between the indie and the mass market on my channel. I might have even done, I know I've done some Antique Anatomy videos too, but again, because this is an astrology deck, I tend to use it in very specific ways. So it's more of setting out like intention cards with this deck because we don't really have anything like going on in terms of like scenery, right? It's just the Cancer card. And half of it's upside down. And the Aries card, Pluto, Lilith, and then we have some moon phases as well. I think I have those at the back. I do believe in the mass market edition there's also the houses. So there you go. That is a look at my creator collection, the decks by creators that I collect pretty much everything they make. These are creators that I love to support, that I want to have the full collection of their offerings, and so I will buy every deck they create so that I can sort of complete my library, if you will, of tarot and oracle decks from these individual creators. And again, those, turns out it was 5. It's not that I forgot Claire, but just those were in a different space because they actually have their own basket. So whereas the other creator decks, well, I guess all my Leila and Olive decks all sit up on a particular shelf, but sometimes with these types of decks, like they get sort of places of honor, and I sometimes forget to grab them when I'm doing videos because they're like in their own place. As always, you'll find links for everything I've shown here in the description box below. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to sharing with you again soon.